You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
I'm Drew Leiter.
And I'm Cletus Jacobs.
And welcome to episode 8 of the Legends of the DCU Podcast. Tonight we're talking Absolute Green Lantern number 5, number 6, number 7, and The Sandman, Season 2, Episode 8, Fuel for the Fire. But before we get into that, let's talk some DC news. All right, Cletus, first up for DC news. Lantern star Aaron Pierre is returning as John Stewart in Superman sequel, Man of Tomorrow. David Cornsweet and Nicholas Hoult will both return as the Man of Steel and Lex Luthor, respectively, for Man of Tomorrow, which is set to release on July 9th, 2027. German actor Lars Ettinger joins the cast to play the super-intelligent antagonist Brainiac. Man of Tomorrow is written and directed by DC Studios co-chief James Gunn and is due to begin production this summer in Atlanta.
I'm excited for the movie, Drew. We both really enjoyed the first one. I love that Brainiac is finally going to be a live-action villain. That's cool. I like the cast. I like that they're coming back, including Lex is great. Yeah, exciting stuff, Drew.
Yeah, and the fact that Jon Stewart's going to be in the movie. So I wonder in what capacity he'll be in the movie. If he's just going to be a cameo or is he going to play more of a role in it? It'll be interesting to see. And if we're going to see the Justice Gang at all.
I would expect him to have a more substantial than a small cameo would be my expectation, Drew. I mean, that could be wrong, obviously, but I don't know. You go through the whole HBO show setting up him as the new Green Lantern, and then you just have him pop in for 30 seconds. That doesn't feel like how Gunn usually operates.
Yeah, that's very true. It's going to be exciting either way.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't expect him to be a main character necessarily, but I would expect him to be on like the level of Guy from the first movie. I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. You know what I mean? Like Guy was there enough for you to really get to enjoy his presence, but he also was far from a main character.
Yeah, that's true. And who knows if we'll see any of the Justice Gang in the Man of Tomorrow, but I am excited about it. So, all right, well, that wraps up DC news for this week. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk Absolute Green Lantern.
Do you like animation? Do you like stuff? Well, do I have a podcast for you? It's Luke Ski's Animation and Stuff Podcast, where your host Luke Ski, an animation industry professional and comedy musician, talks with a different special guest each episode to discuss animation and or stuff, like the Muppets, for example. So, if you'd like to listen to this podcast, Luke Ski's Animation and Stuff Podcast, do so where podcasts exist.
And we're back. Let's talk Absolute Green Lantern number 5. Todd Rice, the lone survivor of Evergreen, is dug out of the ruins after experiencing a terrifying vision in which a mysterious voice tells him to be with fear and declares that judgment has stopped and no new Abin Sur can be chosen. Forced by Hector Hammond to recount what happened, Todd explains that when the Green Lantern crashed, Joe vanished, Hal survived, and Abin Sur warned that Joe was an anomaly who should be hunted. Enraged and grieving, Hal emptied his gun into Abin Sur, only for the dying alien to rise, melt into black fluid, and warn Hal to fear the Black Hand and the coming Black Star before dissolving. In the desert, Hal, already affected by the darkness, attacks Joe, blaming her for everything as the Black Hand's corruption twists his body into a monstrous form. Joe fights back, revealing she was lost in the desert after instinctively flying away from the crash. But Hal's transformation accelerates until he becomes a towering creature driven by the Black Hand's voice. Their battle draws them back to Evergreen, where the Green Lantern ship awakens and pulls them inside. Joe drags the corrupted Hal Jordan into its core, and both suddenly find themselves suspended in a black void with John Stewart, glowing yellow, who reveals he was the voice guiding them and urges them to be without fear.
So I think, Drew, this was a great kind of jump back in point for us off of the first few issues that we got. The thing I loved about how the whole series is unfolding, but this one too, is that more of the world is making sense to the characters, both to us as readers and to the characters, and they're starting to connect dots that we had already made, right? Like we, the readers, knew that John and Guy were still alive. But Joe and Hal and nobody else really understood that. And we see right at the end that they're starting to figure that out. And it was rewarding. It's so obtuse at the beginning in a good way, right? Like it's trying to be this kind of mystery box for you to slowly unfold and figure out how this world works, what the rules are of these lanterns and all of that. And in these 3 issues that we read, we slowly get more and more of that, especially starting with the end of this issue. It's very rewarding, I think, Drew, to the reader because while the book is, I think, extremely confusing in the first couple of issues, that you can still follow the action, right? Like you're not confused about the action of what's happening, but the like terms and the words and how this stuff works makes no sense. And it slowly starts to make sense as we go. It's I really enjoy how Ewing has been writing the book.
Yeah, I agree. It's been really interesting. And one of the things I liked in this issue was the battle between Joe and Hal. And Hal just basically transforms into this giant black hand with looks like it has a red eye on it. And it's interesting, the battle between Hal and Joe. And then how they come back to Evergreen, and then this lantern symbol we've seen that's just sitting on the town just goes upright and then just sucks them in. So I like the artwork on it a lot. I thought it was pretty cool.
I agree. I really like how, and as like we see John is gold, right? And I like the design of him here at the end. The way they've portrayed Joe as a different type of Green Lantern has been really cool. Their new take on kind of combining Blackstars and the Black Hand into one kind of alien thing is really cool. And we get another look at a different version of that in, I think, the next issue. So yeah, I agree with you, Drew. It's something that I think the creative team together have done a really cool and interesting job of creating this world that, again, like I think unlike some other books, Drew, that we've read where it kind of the Flash, for example, recently that we read, I felt like was very confusing both in the artwork and in the writing. And I didn't ever feel like the book rewarded you for your patience. In my opinion, I felt like it stayed confusing the whole time, right? And it was sort of like, if you don't get it, you don't get it, and that's tough for you. I feel like this book has rewarded readers' patience, and the book increasingly makes sense. Like, he's not keeping things obscure, right? Like he's certainly stringing you along because it's a good monthly comic, right? That wants you coming back for more. But I felt like every issue that we go into this, I understand the world better and I enjoy the book more. And that's just, to me, that's a sign of good writing.
All right, let's dive into Absolute Green Lantern number 6. Cameron Chase, benched from West Coast cases after the Evergreen disaster, dozes off in Coast City and glimpses a cosmic black sphere asking, how far out is the world that's coming, before being placed on leave for accusing her supervisor of taking Hammond's money. Meanwhile, inside the Green Lantern's inner void, revealed as Oa, John Stewart explains to Joe and Hal that Evergreen's residents, including a mediating red-glowing Guy Gardner, have entered the second stage of Abin Sur's world judgment, where 4 levels of light, Quard, Rayo, Sur, and represent escalating states of action and understanding. John reveals that Abin Sur was a title for the guardian of the green level, that Guy and John were chosen as initiatives of higher levels, and that their enemies, the Weaponers and Blackstars, worship the darkness of Quard, the Blackstar World. Approaching is Mogo itself. Joe refuses to accept the system's rules, takes Hal's hand and forcibly purges the black hand from him. She escapes the lantern with an unconscious Hal just as the ship erupts black fluid, vanishes from Hammond's grasp, and is secretly taken to the moon by John to watch for Mogo. Back in Coast City, Chase calls her partner, Simon Baz, insisting she's not emotionally compromised despite her ex-wife being from Evergreen, only to open her apartment door and find Joe and Hal standing there. I thought this issue revealed a lot, Cletus.
I agree, especially, I mean, the exposition dump that you get from John really clarifies a lot and helps finally define some of these words that we've been seeing thrown around that are obviously reusing well-known DC names, right? But turning them into titles, and what do those things mean? I thought that was hugely beneficial. And then learning the real looming threat, this Black Star, is actually this universe's version of Mogo. I love that, Drew.
I know that was kind of a surprise to me, but I was like, whoa, and very interesting. And we're used to Mogo looking kind of greenish, and this Mogo is black, very dark. So yeah, I'm interested into what's going to be happening in the future. That's for sure.
And this issue I thought was a perfect example of what I'm talking about, where the book has rewarded you for sticking with it, right, and starts to explain things to you in a way that really I thought make a lot of sense, and then teases you with something even more tantalizing. It's like, hey, we started with this, what if Hal Jordan was the bad guy, but that's not really what you want. Here, what about this with Mogo as the big bad? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm in on that. I am, Drew, pleasantly surprised that Hal does not die. I really thought that he was going to be like the initial opening arc villain, and then they would just kind of move forward with Joe. And certainly Joe is the main character, and I have no problem with that. But I like that Hal's sticking around, and I'm curious how he might factor in the future. I kind of wonder if he'll get a different light, kind of like John or Guy.
Yeah, I'm wondering that too. And because it felt like, even though they were fighting each other, it felt like through the whole run so far, Hal and Joe have been friends in the past, and they were put on opposite sides there. And the whole time, Hal is warning people that he can't control the blackness, the black hand. And I thought it was cool that Joe had the ability to just to rip it out of him. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what role Hal plays moving forward. The other thing I thought was interesting was Hector Hammond himself. I mean, we got to see him in was it Absolute Evil?
Yeah, and I think it's either this issue or the next one, Drew. There's a direct reference to him about to go to that meeting. I think it was this one. And that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool little, obviously if we were reading this as they were coming out, we would have gotten that. But that was a fun little like, oh, I know where he's going. He was great, man. What a slime ball. I thought he was written so well. What a terrible person.
Yes, and I like how he didn't do anything, but he took credit for the Green Lantern being gone from Evergreen.
He doesn't do anything. He fires someone for no reason. He very reluctantly agrees to give medical support to someone who's on the verge of death. Like, he's just terrible in every way. Like, there's no redeeming qualities to him, and I mean that in a good way. Like, he is a fantastic villain.
All right, well, let's dive into the last issue. Absolute Green Lantern number 7. Mogo and Blackstar Armada encircle the world J586, condemning its people for failing to surrender 3 hidden Owens and declaring all guilty for the sins of a few. When Arisia, Rab, Metaphil, and Corina Vent rise to defend the planet, the Blackstars unleash their resurrected enforcer Kilowog, who brutally kills Corina and Metaphil before Arisia seemingly destroys him, only for Mogo to annihilate the entire planet moments later. As Kilowog's body regenerates aboard his ship, a blazing sphere of stolen red light wielded by Tomar Re obliterate the vessel and crushes Kilowog beyond resurrection inside a shrinking construct cube. Tomar Re sends the cube back to Mogo as a message to the Blackstar's leader, the controller of Mu, who recognizes the attack as a distraction from a mysterious green anomaly elsewhere, and reveals himself as the sole wielder of the gold power of R, a level of light the Blackstars consider lowest, but which the Owens believe to be the highest attainable state. which is interesting in itself that the Owens believe its is the highest attainable and the Blackstars consider it the lowest because their views are flip-flopped. I thought that was interesting on the different
Yeah,
levels.
I agree. But what was interesting, though, Drew, was that they also seemed to consider the light levels to be the same. So their philosophies are completely different. But Sinestro there at the end seems to at least to me, Drew, my interpretation was that he also was under the belief that he had reached the highest level of light
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense from his perspective.
because he's the same gold light. I don't know. Maybe I misread the scene, Drew, but I read it as that he's the same. I mean, yellow, right? It's Sinestro or gold, but that's also what John is. But that John views himself as like a permanent understudy, right? That he can't go higher than that, and Sinestro seems to believe that he's capable of more, or that, or again, that kind of reverse philosophy where he has actually achieved the highest, but they're both the same color. So that's kind of interesting. I am very curious to get more of Sinestro because we really only kind of got him right at the end. And obviously, we know he seems to be working for Mogo, but if we know Sinestro, he's probably also working for himself. So, very, very curious to see more of that character. I love Tomar Re's appearance, Drew, and that scene where he like creates the cube and then shrinks it. It's just like it's so sudden and so casual, right? Like he just like, and this is right after you see Kilowog absolutely manhandle like three Green Lanterns can't do anything against him, and then Tomar Re pops up, basically like snaps his fingers and flies away, and Kilowog is nothing more than just a cube of flesh. I loved that scene.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And I also I thought it was interesting because I hadn't really seen Cyclops aliens like this before that we saw in here. I thought they were kind of interesting.
That they're no more now.
No, they're no more. One of them was a Green Lantern. So I like that we got a couple different iterations of the Green Lanterns here, Arisia and some of the others there, even though they didn't last very long.
Mogo being essentially a sentient Death Star, which isn't really that far off from what Mogo is in the main universe. He just typically doesn't utilize that skill set. Seeing the evil Mogo just essentially like again, but it's like it's not a power station, right? It's sentient. So he just decides, nah, you've pissed me off and blows the planet up. Man, I really enjoyed these three issues, Drew. It left me quite hungry for more of the story.
Yeah, I was originally planning to go into more issues, and then I noticed the other one went into a story arc that wasn't finished yet. So I held off. You were probably like, only three issues? But that's why I stopped it with these three issues, because the next one goes into a story arc that's not finished. And I'm like, okay, we're not starting a story arc that's not finished. So, but these three issues was packed with a lot of info, though. Anyways,
I agree.
very interesting. And even issue number 7 here, we got to see the stuff we got to see the Mogo and the Blackstars from their perspective, Sinestro. So yeah, that was cool that we got that focused on Mogo and the Blackstars. I'm ready to dive into more too. So I'm hoping that story arc wraps up and we can dive into it soon. All right. Well, that wraps up our comic books talk for this week. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk to Sandman.
Welcome to Modern Musicology, the podcast where we break down the hits, the albums, and the legends from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We're talking chart toppers, deep cuts, and the records your older siblings still won't stop playing. We cover everything from 20-minute prog epics to 3-minute punk songs and all the metal, rap, and pop in between. Modern Musicology, part of the ESO Network.
All right, let's talk the Sandman, Season 2, Episode 6, Fuel for the Fire. Clarican and Lady Nuala are riding home on horses. Clarican tells Nuala that the dreaming will survive, even if Lord Morpheus does not. Nuala reveals that the only reason she agreed to return to Fairy was to bring troops back to the dreaming so they can fight at Lord Morpheus's side. Clarican states that if Queen Titania sees Lady Nuala as she is, without her glamour, she is not going to listen to anything that Nuala has to say. Clarican gives Lady Nuala his glamour. When Clarican and Nuala arrive in Fairy, they are met by Queen Titania, who wants to speak with Lady Nuala alone. Queen Titania states that she hopes that Lady Nuala didn't think that her exile was permanent. It was fitting for its time, but she assures Lady Nuala that there is none here more pleased than she to have her back. Queen Titania notices the jewel on Nuala's necklace and states that it is very pretty. Queen Titania asks how Lord Morpheus is. Nuala answers that he is very well considering, but he is on his own now. He has asked the residents of the Dreaming to seek shelter in other realms until matters are settled. Nuala states that Lord Morpheus is in need of some assistance. Queen Titania wonders if Lord Morpheus told her to ask for Queen Titania's help. Lady Nuala answers no. Queen Titania wonders if Lord Morpheus ever spoke of her while Lady Nuala stayed with him. Lady Nuala answered not to her, but Lord Morpheus does tend to keep his own counsel. Queen Titania turns her attention back to Lady Nuala's necklace. Queen Titania wonders if she were to ask for it, what would Lady Nuala say? Lady Nuala answers that she would be forced to admit that it was a gift and not in her power to give. Thought that was a interesting interaction between her and the Queen.
Yeah, very prickly conversation between the two. A lot of nonverbal cues going on there, Drew.
Yeah, I got the feeling that Queen Titania is very jealous of her and very much desired her necklace.
Yeah,
hoping that she would give it to her, I think.
Yeah, I agree completely. It was definitely trying to bully her into just giving it to her, and she doesn't go for it, rightfully so. So I am excited to see more of the interactions between those two because I am sure that's not the last. Also, once again, Claire Kim, just the worst brother of all time, maybe? I think, good Lord.
I agree with you there. And the other thing I wanted to point out is I think Queen Titania is in love with Lord Morpheus.
Oh, you think? I didn't. They were kind of subtle about it.
I'm wondering if that's going to play out at all either, somehow. So I'm very interested what's going to happen with them. Of course, we don't get to revisit them this episode. Dream visits his sister Despair. Despair reveals that she used to go and see Orpheus. She never told him because she knew he wouldn't approve. Orpheus used to sing to her, and in return, she would answer his questions about Dream. Dream states he has not been a good brother, but that perhaps soon there will be a better Dream to take his place. His name is Daniel Hall. Despair repeats the name Daniel Hall and then goes to a mirror. On Earth, 2 women have reported a child abduction. Detective Pinkerton, a.k.a. Loki, and Detective Fellows, a.k.a. Puck, arrived to investigate. Lita and Rose explained that they went out for dinner, and when they came back, the front door was open. The entire staff was unconscious, and the only one missing was their son. They found his stuffed animal on the floor. When the women are not looking, Puck pours sand on the floor. He then tells Loki to take a look. Loki states that it looks like sand. Dream tells Despair that he has to go. Lucienne reports that according to Daniel's dream ledger, he was awakened and left the realm several hours ago. Dream states he will have to find him in the waking world. He suspects that the baby has been sedated to keep him from dreaming. Lucienne suspects a trap. Dream is sure that it is, but the future of the realm depends on this boy. Lucienne believes they can prevent anything from happening to Dream. She has been doing some research on the kindly ones. According to the source text, the endless are safe from harm or harassment as long as they remain in their realms. She thinks Loki and Puck know that. Dream states he will not spend eternity a prisoner in his own realm, nor will he let anything happen to Daniel. If he must go, Lucienne states that Dream find a mortal to assist him. Dream states he knows a mortal as cunning as Loki and Puck and almost as dangerous, Johanna Constantine. Dream offers Johanna Constantine the handwritten journal of her ancestor, Lady Johanna Constantine, and the secret knowledge therein. The kindly ones pay a visit to their granddaughter in a dream, stating they are here to help her. They tell her that those who took Daniel are not what they seem. They are going to put him in the fire. Mind you don't get burned. I was going to ask you, Cletus, maybe they revealed it in the first season. I don't remember. But did you remember that Lita was related to the kindly ones?
It seemed vaguely familiar when they said it, but no, I did not remember that, Drew. And it didn't trigger enough of a memory for me to say definitively.
Yeah, I thought I had a vague memory of it too when they said it, but I wasn't sure. So I figured you'd remember, but apparently you don't either.
No. No, we had a pretty big gap in the between this show, so some of the smaller details I have not remembered.
Yeah, because it's been several years since we saw season one. Johanna and Dream begin their investigation into Daniel Hall's abduction by seeing his mother. She believes that Dream took Daniel, but Dream states he has enemies. Johanna promises that they will return Daniel. Johanna realizes that Dream is on a suicide mission. Dream wants to be punished by the kindly ones for Orpheus's death. He could be safe in the dreaming, but instead he is down here. Johanna tells him to go back to the dreaming and stay there or she won't finish the mission. So she calls Dream out here. And I guess
She's
that,
not wrong.
yeah, it makes sense because honestly, he has no reason to be there. He could have just hired Johanna to take care of it without him leaving the dreaming. I thought that was kind of interesting. Dream pays a visit to Hob, letting him know he must return to his realm and does not know if he will ever come back to this one. They have one last drink together. Hob states it is not too late for Dream to fix his mistakes. I think it's interesting we keep coming back to Hob. I really like that first story in season one, and it's interesting we've seen him a couple times during this season. Dream returns to his realm and frees Alex Burgess, the man who imprisoned him. Puck has a change of heart and tries to return Daniel Hall to his mother. Dream demands the boy, but Puck will only do it on one condition. Dream must release Loki from his obligation. Dream agrees. Dream transforms into Loki and tells Puck it is time to go home. When the time comes, Daniel is going to be king. Dream has an audience with Lucienne telling her that he did not find the child. Johanna Constantine will continue the search without him since it's imprudent for him to be away from the dreaming at this time. Back at their place, Loki uses fairy dust to put Puck to sleep. With Puck out of the way, Loki puts Daniel in the fire. Loki returns to Lita Hall as the detective, telling Daniel's mother that they have recovered a body that has been badly burned. He gives her a photograph and Lita knows it is Daniel. Back in the dreaming, Dream creates his own Loki. And I was like, okay, what is that about?
It's Nightmare from the first season.
Oh, I don't even remember Nightmare.
He was one of the primary antagonists. I think Dr. Dream ended up being the final one, Drew, but Nightmare was I think the first half-ish of the season, where he was attempting to essentially rebel and I think take over the dreaming from Dream, but is ultimately obviously unsuccessful in that because he is a creation of Morpheus. That skull was his. He gets in his defeat in season one, he gets reduced to that little skull, and then we see that get put back in this new shell and this new version of him. I'm surprised you don't remember the teeth eyes.
Yeah, I don't remember. Jeez, man, I should have gone back and rewatched season one before this season. Overall, I thought this episode was okay. I mean, honestly, not that much happened in it.
It's definitely one, Drew, that is very much a Netflix episode where it wants you to be watching the next one, right? I thought it was pretty good. Was I entirely satisfied with only watching this episode and then, waiting a week to watch the next one? Not really, but that's also not really how it was designed to be viewed either. So I can't really hold that against it.
Yeah, that's true. It's not how it's designed to be viewed. And we got some stuff in it, but it didn't feel like enough to me. I felt like I got half an episode or something. So I did still like some of the subplots. I liked going back to the modern Constantine and her interactions with Dream. I was 50% right, Drew. Last episode, I talked about the final scene with Puck, Loki, and Daniel Hall all in a room. And I wondered if Loki was the one that was going to get cold feet about whatever scheme they were up to. It was wrong. One of them did, but it was Puck, which actually makes a lot more sense than it being Loki. Because like Puck says, he doesn't indiscriminately act with malice, right? It's only to people that deserve it. And Daniel Hall's a baby, hasn't done anything to anybody. So I thought that made way more sense than it being Loki. And I quite liked that dynamic between the two tricksters where you can see the different level of kind of malicious trickery that Loki is compared to Puck, right? Right. They're both tricksters, but one is a lot more okay with kind of bending the rules than the other to an extreme. Right. I found it funny how Puck took a liking to the baby.
But again, it also makes, I think it makes sense to Puck as a character. I think it also makes sense to him as a fairy. Like, I mean, obviously fairies sort of within different myths and stuff have a history of kidnapping kids, right? But many versions, they're not killing them, right? They're sort of bringing them to live in their realm. And I thought that multiple factors in it all kind of made sense between the two of them, that Puck would be the one that would be like, I'm not really on board with killing this baby.
Yeah, that does make sense.
And it makes complete sense too why Loki would not care in the slightest, right? Like that's just, I think it's much more in line with how many versions of that character have been portrayed.
Agreed. All right, well, that wraps up our episode for this week. You got a shout out?
Yeah, so we got a new appearance of Tomar Re, who has been out of commission for many years in the main DC universe. And I loved his first appearance in this Absolute universe, Drew. So I wanted to go back, and his first appearance, he is actually on the cover of the issue, Drew. Green Lantern #6. Volume 2 specifically, obviously the one with Hal Jordan. On Green Lantern #6, he's on the cover. The story is called The World of Living Phantoms, and it came out in 1961.
Awesome. All right, and for my shout out, I'm going to shout out about Emerald, Twilight, and Beyond, because I'm reading the Kyle Rayner run basically after Emerald, Twilight. I noticed Kyle only had 5 issues before the 0 Hour event. I was surprised how close that event was to his initial launch. So Emerald Twilight is issues 48, 49, and 50 of Green Lantern. And Kyle's basically is introduced very briefly in Emerald Twilight, but then his initial issue is 51. And in issues number 55, he meets Alan Scott. And that's the issue where he's battling Major Force after Major Force has killed his girlfriend, Alex, which we all know is the fridging story. And then, Kyle has Major Force on an electric chair and is trying to kill him when Alan Scott shows up and intervenes. And then after that issue, Kyle battles Hal Jordan himself as Parallax. And that's the issue 0 and 0 Hour storyline. Thought it was pretty interesting how close that event was to Kyle's run beginning.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, though. You would remember better than me, Drew, because I wasn't really old enough to be reading it as it came out at the time. But there was a relatively quick turnaround on Hal becoming Parallax in Emerald Twilight and then 0 Hour, I thought. Wasn't there? I didn't think he was like...
It did
I
happen.
didn't think he was a villain for multiple years. I thought it all kind of happened pretty quickly, but you would know better than me.
Yeah, it did happen quickly. It's been a long time. And I didn't even remember they were calling him Parallax in the 0 Hour event, but I guess that does make sense. Because when Johns introduces his version of Parallax, it's just a retcon from that story. So,
right.
But yeah, it's interesting because I read this stuff when it came out, and I read part of Kyle Rayner's run for a while before I eventually dropped the title. So I've read these stories before, but some of the stuff I'm not even remembering. And I just read an issue where Darkseid's taking an interest in Kyle. So I was like, I don't remember Darkseid being in anything. I mean, he's battled Mongol before. Oh, in issue 0, I don't remember this. Kyle overloads Oa because Hal's getting his power from the planet Oa and destroys it. I didn't remember that. And then when he destroys the planet, Hal kind of disappears, I guess. Or in the issue I actually read. So I don't remember the whole story of 0 Hour, but I know they used that event to set a lot of new versions of characters up because everybody was getting a 0 issue. I remember that. I remember getting Batman 0 and some of the Supermans were 0 and stuff like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. 0 Hour, I know Parallax is one of the 2 major villains in that. That's the one where they changed course like last second to make Hawk the other villain, right?
I think that was a different story.
Because it's not just Parallax. I didn't think
Parallax
was the exclusive villain in that story.
I thought Hawk was Monarch or something. No, that was Armageddon 2001. Hawk was the villain Monarch. Okay. And that
I'll
happened.
Take your word for it. There was some major event. I know I've not read it, so this is what I've only read about it.
Yes, it was Armageddon 2001.
Major villain, and everybody guessed correctly ahead of time who it was supposed to be, and so they changed last second and made it Hawk, which made no sense out of nowhere, so that they kept the surprise. It's something that comes up a lot when there are like controversial comic decisions. I've watched videos or read stuff about that one. Comes up pretty frequently.
Yeah, I remember the Armageddon 2001 storyline because it was when I was collecting too. So, but yeah, that was Hawk, and it was he was calling himself Monarch or something. I remember it not being that great of a story. And 0 Hour was a time traveling villain extant, and he gains immense power. That one, Hal Jordan was behind. But anyways, that's my shout out. I'm reading the run of Kyle Rayner and enjoying revisiting it because it's been a long time. All right, if you'd like to comment on anything we've talked about tonight, you can read us at our feedback line, 317-455-8411. Text us, leave us a message, or you can email us at legendsofthedcu@gmail.com. All right, Cletus, coming up next week. I know you're going to be excited about this. Superman's number 24 through 30. Plus our next episode of the Sandman. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.